Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches. Bonjour, bonsoir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. It is Sunday, August 9th, J. Slater case. And as far as I know, Jan's Views Live should be happening tonight, usual time. And Jan will be choosing what we talk about. I've given a few suggestions, but it's her live. So let's see how that one goes. This one, I know I will say it, just a short vid. Um, I'm still in the middle of the multi-part series Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and quite possibly tomorrow, Monday, I will deal with what I think could have happened, might have happened on the Sunday. We're trying to decide in that multi-part series when was Jay Slater's body actually found. And I must say, I mean, it is just astoundingly awful that to this day we cannot be sure when Jay Slater's body was actually found. I mean, yes, officially on the Monday, July 15th, officially. But how can that be when you have the person who claims to have found Jay Slater's body, one Chris Pennington, say that actually it was on the Saturday, and the same person, Chris Pennington, has said it was on the Sunday, and the same person, Chris Pennington, has said, well, it was on the Monday too. This is the lamentable state of affairs in this whole mystery, this saga. I keep calling it a saga because it's almost like a never-ending journey that never gets to its destination. But anyway, that multi-part series, I'll probably take that up again on Monday, as I want to talk about the Sunday and what evidence or what we see there that might indicate Jay's body was found on the Sunday or even dumped on the Sunday. That's to come. There's a whole host of things, different branches of this story that I need to talk about and discuss. And the one aspect that never seems to keep throwing up possible explanations and digging into the truth here is Brad's interview. I mean, for what was just a few minutes worth of, seemed like off the cuff remarks by one of Jay's friends with a certain Isla, Tricrea, Triquare, Triquarto, whatever, um, the more you dig into it, the more fascinating Brad's interview is, and the more fascinating Brad is. And I'm beginning to think he was described as a hero just because he sat down and did an interview like this. Um, and it was several days into the search. So, in the sense that Brandon went missing in action, didn't say a word, Lucy was verbal diarrhea for 3 days and then disappeared, and Brad was missing in action but then popped up for this interview before disappearing again. In that sense, I guess he was a hero. It seems like no one else, Zach, Warren, Debbie, none of them wanted to do the same kind of interview. It was all up to Brad. So, yeah, to a certain extent, hero Brad. But what is it he said that I wanted to turn to today? First of all, before I turn to what he said that makes me question something, I want to imagine all of you out there, whatever age you are, you go on a holiday to Tenerife, and let's imagine you all go to some great event, some great concert, festival, whatever word they give these things, 3 nights of solid raving. Well, let's say you do that. And if you do that and you're there for your music, you're there with your mates, you're there to get some sunshine, you're there to eat, drink, and be merry, and yeah, maybe take a few substances. That seems to be the norm. Yeah, just a normal lad. Let's say you did all that. Well, if you did all that, then there would be nothing at all that anyone could say about your holiday, your trip, your time spent in Tenerife. There'd be nothing. There'd be, well, he was on holiday. There's nothing to say about it. And yet Brad keeps hinting at there is something to say about Jay's stay in Tenerife that is beyond what you and I would call just a normal holiday. We've dug into already when Isla asks Brad the key question, is it possible that someone could have taken Jay? I mean, talk about organized misinformation. ITV experienced journalist interviewer herself, Isla, planting the seeds of misinformation there, almost prodding Brad forward with, well, could he have been taken by someone? And Brad's answer isn't a dismissive, well, no, of course not. Again, I go back to you and I go to Tenerife and, you know, you end up gone. Is it possible someone, I would say, well, no one could have taken my friend. It's just not possible. I mean, my friend's here having a beer and we're going to the music, and then, my friend gets in a car with someone and friend is gone forever. No, I would say it's not possible. It's just not possible. Um, but Brad's answer is, well, yeah, could be if Jay had done something wrong. Again, I don't think I have a friend that would make me think, well, unless he did something wrong, I would be like, well, no, didn't do anything wrong. Couldn't have done anything wrong. We're on holiday. Yeah. So just not possible. But that's Brad's answer. Brad's answer is there, not possible. It is, yeah, Jay could have been taken by someone if he'd done something wrong, whatever that means. And of course, Isla didn't follow up with it. Let me say again, that's not the bit of the interview I want to touch on. A very keen follower of this case alerted me to something else that Brad said. And I'm sure you remember it. Isla asked Brad, what would you say to anyone watching this, meaning this interview, who might have information that might have seen him? What would you say to that person? Well, here's the question again, so you can think about how you would react if you were on holiday. What would you say to anyone watching this who might have information that might have seen him? What would your answer be? My answer would be, if there is such a person that might have seen Jay or has any information, to please come forward and report that to the authorities, whatever that information might be, however that information might have come about, just tell the authorities. I think that would be my answer. Brad's answer is along those lines, but he puts in certain conditions that I do find rather strange and alarming. Brad says to come forward. He urges anyone that might have information and might have seen Jay to come forward. But here are the conditions. If you do, come forward if you do have any information. But, ready for the conditions? Only if you've been here and you know what he's been doing. Wow. So in other words, Brad doesn't want anyone coming forward with any information about what might have happened to Jay or anyone that's seen him, unless they've actually been in Tenerife. In other words, no one in Lancashire, Tom Hilton and the rest of you lot, we don't want to hear from you. Even though you might have very key information that could indicate what happened to Jay, we don't want to hear from you. Anyone outside of Tenerife, shut up, is what Brad is saying. Yeah, I'll repeat what he says, but only if you've been here and you know what he's been doing. So, if, in Brad's world, you happen to have seen Jay somewhere, valuable information, you don't happen to know what Jay was up to, then Brad doesn't want to hear from you and says, don't go to the authorities. Brad says, only if you've been here and you know what he's been doing. Well, what has he been doing? He's been on holiday. He's been doing nothing but dancing around, enjoying life. What does Brad mean there? If you know what he's been doing. To me, it's very close to saying, if you know what Jay was involved with when he was over here, and if you were also over here, so you can comment on what Jay was doing when he was here, then yes, Brad says, come forward. Hey, but if you have a load of information on Jay and you weren't even in Tenerife, forget it. Shut up. Go away. And even if you were in Tenerife, he's saying, yeah, even if you were in Tenerife, and you saw Jay maybe walking up the hill, and you saw Jay hiding in a cave, and you saw Jay throw his phone away, and he saw Jay do all this. Unless you know what his words, what Jay's been doing, don't come forward, is what Brad said. Go back and listen to that interview if you want to. If I find the link, I'll post it again. But you know the interview. You know it like me, I'm sure, very well. Not off by heart, but this should be ringing a bell. I'll say it one more time because it really is a jaw-dropping moment. Isla says, what would you say to anyone watching this interview who might have information that might have seen him? Brad says to come forward if you do. But only if you've been here and you know what he's been doing. You ain't been here. You don't know what he was up to. Zip it. Brad's instructions. Maybe that is why he's the hero. Because he sent out the message. No one back in Lancashire start talking about this because you don't know what you're going to be letting yourself in for. Brad, the hero, laying down the ground rules here of who should comment. And that leaves 99% of you shut up. Just my take. Let's leave it there. Hasta luego, adios, hasta la vista. See you next time.